welcome to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danica Foley. With me, we have a Civil War historian. We're giving you that title. I think it's pretty befitting, but you are local, and I'm so happy to have you here. We have Mr. Terry Guarisco, and let's get right to it. This is a fabulous story. You actually came over here about last week to talk about the U.S.S. Kinsman.
Right.
I'm gonna just stop it right there. Tell me more about it.
Well, the Kinsman was a Union gunboat operating at the time that it was sunk in the Atchafalaya River and the lower Atchafalaya, which most people call the Teche. And it was in various gunboat battles in the Teche, and it was damaged a couple of times, and it was always in battles. And there was 2 or 3 other gunboats, Union gunboats, here also. And that's when it was Brashear City. Mm-hmm. And so the boat was on patrol, you might say. It was running from south, basically from the wharf out here, to Fort Buchanan, which was up at the end of the seawall on Front Street. There was a fort there, and it was carrying troops for picket duty, which in those days was guard duty. Mm-hmm. And it had the troops on it, and when it got up almost to Fort Buchanan, it struck a log, put a hole in the boat, and damaged one of the paddles. It was a side wheeler, which it had two paddle wheels. And the officer in charge told the captain, turn around, we're gonna go to the Front Street dock. So by the time they got there, the water was gaining on them. They did have some type of a manual bilge pumps, but they couldn't keep up. So the officer gave them command, give it full steam ahead. We're gonna run up on the mud flat at Bateman Island. So they did that. And they ran up on the mud flat. No sooner than they ran on the mud flat, it backed off into deep water on its own, slid down. All the troops ended up in the water. 5 men drowned in the bottom who were firemen, cook, coal heavers, and the other gunboats in the river picked up the soldiers.
Yes. So that boat went down pretty much undamaged except for possibly the bottom where it struck something. It's a gunboat, and it's not damaged by any type of artillery, any shots, but it actually hit something, and it's down in the water near the railroad, which is kind of near Bateman Island. They call it, I guess, the Intercoastal Waterway. That's more of a landmark and mile marker about where it is.
Right.
And you believe that it's down there, sunk about how far down?
We don't know, 50 to 100 feet.
Now, and the reason why I say I want you to tell me that, because we dredge, right? We dredge all the time, and the authorized depth is 20. So if you're saying it's even further down, that means it has to be covered in silt and sediment. And do you believe that it's still in good condition?
I think it is, because under that silt, there's no oxygen. And the Roland Stansberry with the Civil War Museum in Franklin spearheaded a project around 2000 because he was worried that the dredging was going to damage the boat. Right. And it was found that it was too deep in the sediment to be affected by the dredging.
Okay. I don't know about anybody else. This is such big news. This is huge news for Morgan City. Now, I will tell you, I can already hear the cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I can hear that that's going to be pretty costly to bring this boat back up. Not only that, bringing it back up, is it going to withstand the oxygen? Is it going to, is it going to be in place, or is it going to fall apart? I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. However, there was a study that was done, right? Mr. Roland Stansberry, along with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, $200,000 just for the study.
Right.
I can only imagine how much it would be to unearth or to bring that forth, but it sounds like a wonderful project for somebody to take on. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because I want to know exactly who is going to take something like this on. I think it sounds great to have something like that in Morgan City that could likely be a museum.
Right, very much so.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about it. Just stay with us. Come on back right here on The Voice of the Coast with yours truly. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Again, I am your host, Danica Long, and with me we have Terry Guarisco. We're calling him a Civil War historian. He's got lots of information, and I'm just soaking it all in. Hopefully, you are as well. We've talked about the U.S.S. Colonel Kinsman, which is believed to be, I'm going to say buried, under the water
right.
at Railroad as Bayou Buff. It's kind of the intercoastal waterway. You have a railroad bridge and Bateman Island. So kind of trying to give you guys kind of a roundabout location of where it is, where it's located, about 50 to 100 feet
under the mud.
Under the mud.
Right.
So which means that it's likely still intact. Let's just say still intact.
They think it is.
They think it is. Now, let's talk about a price tag and who has an interest of maybe going down there and getting it up.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there, hoping that I would get some kind of traction somewhere. I am going to contact the National Park Service, who was involved in salvaging the two other gunboats, the Cairo in Vicksburg and the Hundley in South Carolina. And now the boat, it's not a small boat. It's 177 feet long, and the deck is 40-some feet wide. So it's on the length of these typical supply boats you see around here. It's not little.
Right.
And it's an armored boat. It had the steel armor, had 3 cannons on it, has all the rifles and equipment that the troops had when it went down. Everything is still there. It's just a treasure trove of anything they could have been carrying personally and with the military.
Now, of course, on this show, I like to do the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, although in our minds we're like, okay, it's well encased right now, it's intact. However, even if it's not, I mean, if you get out, I'm sure some parts of that boat can be salvaged, and it can be either placed in the museum or it can be actually a museum itself. Now, one question I asked you was the price tag. I would imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, would that maybe, I'm thinking 50 million for something like that. I mean, it's a huge boat. It's been down there for when it was Brashear City, not even Morgan City.
It's been down there about 160 years.
Exactly. So, does that sound about right?
Well, I've heard that figure thrown out, but who knows?
Okay.
And I look at it, we're always talking about the need for tourism and such around here. If any of it or all of it was brought up and you could develop a museum here, there's no telling how many people would stop and look. And you're talking about gas, lodging, food, education. It could be a big thing for Morgan City.
Yeah, lots of military buffs, but also we have so many schools in this parish that they could bring kids just about any day of the week to something like this. And I think anybody who just wants to know more about their history, and we mentioned something prior to this interview, history is so lost on our generation, this new generation, and it seems like with every generation, it continues to get lost, and I think this would really be a good revival of such. And to know that it's in our own area, this is great. To know that we have a military boat, but unfortunately, I mean, the 5 men that lost their lives, this would be one way to honor those men.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
And you never know where their family could be dug up. And when I say dug up, I mean found.
Right.
Because they have the names.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
And we have so many, we honor our military veterans, our military servicemen and women. This would really be a score for us. The U.S.S. Colonel Kinsman, a Union boat right here in Morgan City. not very far from our wharf. And this picture here, I'm glad we were able to find it. But what's so interesting about it is that it has a paddle wheel on it.
Right.
So when I thought about a boat, I was just thinking maybe just kind of this huge pirate-like boat, but it's more kind of like a steamboat.
That's exactly
Yeah,
what it is,
yeah.
a steamboat, but not the typical steamboat you think of, the big wheel in the back. It had two smaller wheels, one on each side.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And can anyone reach out to you? Where can they contact you, or where do they go to say, hey, I think I might be able to drum up a team?
Hey, I'll give you my phone number for that one.
All right, do that. Let's get. What's the number?
It's 985-312-4256 for anyone who's interested.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terry, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.